to think that most points since 1930. I mean, USC's had some incredible offenses in that time, and also their share of cupcake games. So to put up 73 points and just look like that well-oiled of a machine, and throwing all that stuff out there that didn't matter what personnel was out there, starters, backups, what the play calling was. Missouri State just couldn't stop anything. So really, really proud of that. Potential areas of concern on the other sides of the ball, though. So I'm sure you have a lot of great, insightful overview takes for our audience, Matt, so I won't hold you back any longer. I think you're on mute, Matt.
I'm not going to give all my takes right at the beginning. They'll come out. I want to just kind of unpack, what you said and your impressions of this game. And I think just the natural tension point or talking point, if you will, both it can be a tension point and a talking point, is that, this did look very smooth on offense. I mean, if you're putting up 73, it's looking smooth, and Jaden Maiava did look comfortable. He didn't look lost, like big change from Texas A&M. But of course, Mike Elko, just to talk about Texas A&M for a bit, like one of the best defensive minds in the country. Texas A&M had a good team, not a great team, but a good team, and it was built on defense last season. You would expect a very young, very inexperienced Jaden Maiava to struggle against Texas A&M. You get 8 months of off-season work, tutelage under Lincoln Riley, against a team playing its first ever FBS game. Some people wondered, hey, is Missouri State an FCS team? Is USC's actually playing the FCS? Missouri State is now in Conference USA. This is first ever FBS game, and of the 136 teams playing FBS football, Missouri State might be one of the 10 worst. And so, you don't want to take away from what these guys, from what the Trojans did, like especially on offense. Like that was a great offensive performance, no question. You can't score 73 and not grade out really well on the film. But like this is Shohei Ohtani going up against AAA pitching. To give your comparison, your metaphor, it's not particularly balanced. I mean, it became obvious pretty early that USC was hanging a really huge number in this game. It became really obvious early on that USC minus 36.5 was free money. Hope you took your Trojans minus the points if you're in a jurisdiction where sports betting is allowed. So it's a great offensive performance. I'm not here to deny that. I'm not here to refute that. But, Ethan, just speak to the caliber of competition. And just for some perspective here, and I'm not trying to be Mr. Doom and Gloom. I'm Mr. Yellow Light. This is just about being a little bit cautious, not reading too much into this game. But 2 years ago, Caleb Williams, who much more polished entering 2023 than Jaden Maiava is right now. Trojans looked brilliant against Nevada. They looked brilliant in that first half when they scored 49 points against Stanford. Now, did that mean that USC had a really good juggernaut-type team? Not really. And people will say, oh, but Alex Grinch was coaching the defense back then. That's a big deal, and we're going to talk about that. We have time here on the USC channel here at the Voice of College Football. We're gonna peel away the layers of the onion. Don't worry. We have plenty of time to just unpack these various nuances. So yes, you have Danton Lynn, you have Coach Henny, woof woof, dog work. You have Rob Ryan, you have Doug Belk. You have this galaxy of stars on the defensive staff, unlike 2 years ago. But it's not as though the USC offense in 2023 remained a juggernaut against the tougher teams on the schedule. Got thrown around by Notre Dame, ran into some problems against Utah. Arizona was not a breeze that season. Ran into some difficulty. So playing grossly inferior competition, you want these guys to have confidence. I mean, that's why you play these games. You want these young, unproven players to throw a pass, catch a ball, block, run, and see how, Lincoln Riley's plays, if I just trust the plan, I'm going to succeed. Like, that is part of the point. So again, not trying to rain on anyone's parade, but Ethan, just how much value can you get from seeing your offense work to perfection, but against a team that might be one of the 10 worst in the FBS? Like, what's the balance here, right? Because in the Big Ten, you're going to get better defensive lines, better speed, better coaching, better game plan, everything. The game's not going to slow down the way it did against Missouri State. Things are going to come at Jade Maiava and this offense a lot more quickly. So I guess, from all the things that you saw, all the things that happened, balance the ledger sheet in terms of what are the things that really give you confidence that USC can carry this thing through the Big Ten schedule, and what are the cautionary points you think that need to be kept in mind? Just to kind of assess the larger landscape of the USC offense, knowing that it was awesome, but also knowing the competition it went up against.
Yeah, for sure. I think first and foremost, when I evaluate this offensive performance as one that inspires confidence in me, I look at it not in the context of the competition quite as much as I look at it in the context of, what USC football has done these past few years. And, I mean, just again, going back to that first initial eye-grabbing fact, 73 points, most since 1930. That's more than Caleb Williams and company ever put up, right? And they played some pretty bad teams, Rice, teams like that. Nevada, you mentioned Nevada as well. So, that first and foremost, I think. And then, you've got plenty of, the Reggie Bushes, the Carson Palmers, the Matt Leinerts, like none of those guys, against any of the litany of competition that they played were ever able to put up this point total. So I think that is the context that I'm evaluating it in over kind of evaluating it in the context of their competition. This is bad competition. It's also not the worst competition that anybody played on Saturday. You have Oregon out here playing an FCS team in Montana State. Now, granted, Montana State's a good FCS team, but still, and we always love to joke about the SEC scheduling choices as well. So it's again, not a great team. We all know that. I think the bigger context and storyline here is, how USC compares to other teams in years past. And with somebody who in Jaden Maiava, as we have mentioned, is not a guy like Caleb Williams. He's a guy who was backing up Miller Moss at the beginning of last year, won a couple games against, really kind of shaky Nebraska and UCLA. And then, his biggest win is a bowl game against a kind of middle of the road SEC team. So, and that was a big win. I'm not discrediting that win for him, but he's not a guy who I came into the season with, this body of work or, this even like kind of raw talent confidence in as much as, Caleb Williams kind of had instilled there in us out the gate. So I think that is what makes me so excited about that. In terms of like, what to be excited about, what to be cautious about. I think the skill players are the biggest thing that I'm kind of, taking away as a real big confidence point from this game, just because I think, I was just really impressed. Again, not in the context of the defense, because, them rushing for 80-yard touchdowns is obviously a Missouri State issue. Like Missouri State couldn't stop, couldn't stop a sneeze basically the entire game. So it's not, do I think that they're going to run for, 4 80-yard touchdowns every week? No, I don't. But I just think that like watching how fresh, how explosive, how, just talented overall a lot of these skill players looked. Wayman Jordan, like I told you, I was sold from his first run. I was like that. I literally like jumped up from my couch and put my hands on my head. I was like, he's that fast and that elusive, like that. Just one run in, I was just really impressed with him. And then, Eli Sanders obviously had the bigger day statistically and took on a great body of work there as well. So, and then Brian Jackson, couple of solid runs. King Miller comes in and rushes for an 80-yard touchdown. So, and he also looks super explosive. Like it seems like we're 4 deep in that running back room, truly. So that's what inspires confidence in me there. Like I said, Makai Lemon and Maiava's chemistry seemingly improving. That's really big. And then, Jacoby Lane had a couple of good catches. Really loved seeing Lake McCree get a big touchdown and seeing some of the creativity with the tight ends. They're running a couple of plays with 2 tight ends in the game. Got Walker Lyons involved. Got even Carson Tabarachi got a touchdown at the end there. So love to see that. Didn't really feel like anybody separated themselves as the wide receiver 3. So that's kind of Tanu Kynes had a catch in the beginning of the game. Zacharias Williams, I feel like wasn't the best game for him. Prince Strawn had only the 1 catch that I remember, and then he kind of came up hobbling. So hopefully he's not hurt. Hopefully he's okay. So didn't really feel like anybody separated themselves there. So that's something to, keep monitoring, I think. And then the biggest cautionary for me, and it's, maybe call it a bit of PTSD or whatever you want to call it, but I think it's just still the offensive line. I don't think you can look at I'm very proud of what the offensive line did, especially like Alani Noah having the best day out of any of the offensive linemen is huge to me, I think, because he's a guy that, we talked about last week. A lot of people had more doubts about compared to the left side of the offensive line. So him coming out there and putting up the strongest run and block grades is huge. Love to see some of the big plays he made, especially in the red zone. But I just don't think that you can expect them to, do quite as well against these Big Ten defensive lines and Big Ten defensive coordinators. So I think that that's the biggest, let's pump the brakes on some of the offensive line hype, because, a lot of people are getting excited about the offensive line on Twitter. And like I said, give some of those guys their flowers. But, it's just because Micah Banuelos and some of these guys came in off the bench. Elijah Vicona came in off the bench and had a good game. Doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be, great top of the line contributors when it comes to these Big Ten games. So I would hold out your evaluations for those players until after we see them play some more real competition, is what I would say. But yeah, I think that that's the biggest kind of cautionary tale. I think something that gives me confidence that we'll be able to overcome some of those offensive line struggles is just some more of the play calling. We were getting the ball out to the edges, and there's a lot of motion on the offensive line to try to confuse the defensive line. So do think we could overcome a little bit of growing pains from the offensive line. Obviously, we need them to be better than they were last year, but I think that's the biggest where I'm like, let's not gas these guys up too much until we see them play at least Michigan